guys, how's it going? We're here for another edition of Fireside Fish Talk with my beautiful wife Courtney behind the camera there.
Hi.
And just got back from Lake Hamilton down in Arkansas. Fished the Mr. Bass tournament down there, and it was quite the experience.
So how'd the trip go, little Spencer?
So actually got down to Arkansas like Friday night. Late. Ended up staying in
What time did you leave Friday night? 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Maybe 6:30?
And I probably got down there, I don't know, about midnight or something like that. And
Yep.
I ended up staying in some hotel that, I don't know, I thought I might get stabbed or something like that, but
This is when you did not ask your wife to book the hotel.
I mean,
this is what happens.
It was so weird.
You stay in crappy places when your wife does not book the hotel.
I mean, you gotta understand, it was like 22 degrees or something probably when I got into Searcy, which is just north of Little Rock.
And when did you start looking for a hotel, my dear?
Oh, I just found one on the way down.
You started going into random hotels saying, do you still have room?
Well, so I ended up picking one in Searcy because my buddy I was fishing with on Saturday told me to check out Searcy on the way down because it was, a good spot to stop.
Did you check the reviews?
No, I just walked in there. So I get my room and it's like freezing cold. It's like 22 degrees out. And there's like somebody like walks out of their room with like no shoes on. And they're like walking around with like barefoot. I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with that person, but yeah, like, I don't know, it was kind of weird.
This is what happens when you don't talk to your wife about where you're staying.
Right, and so got in there, and then, got in there about midnight, got up 5 a.m., headed down to Lake Hamilton.
Did you have breakfast?
Oh, yeah.
A balanced meal?
No, actually what I did was I ended up stopping at a truck stop. No, I ended up stopping at a truck stop and getting a breakfast sandwich, which I'll probably talk more about that later, but yeah.
Ew.
And so got a breakfast sandwich and I don't know, a couple Gatorades or something. I don't know, but anyways, so met up with a guy that I haven't seen in a really long time. John Polovich. Used to fish against him while I was in college. Back when I was fishing the FLW college tournaments.
Uh-huh.
And I guess he saw that, I was going to be fishing the Mr. Bass tournament down there. And said he was going to be doing some fishing. So we figured, hey, why not, hook up and go fishing on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And so met him down at the dam on Hamilton. Saturday morning we put in, and there was big local tournament going on. It's called like Trader Bill's or something, and they got like over 100 boats in that. And so all those guys were out there, and they also had another tournament going on like out of the dam. And so we just kind of waited for all that to get going, and then we got out there.
So pretty much this lake has been just fished like crazy.
Oh, yeah. And so the lake, according to John and just, what I saw right when I got there, the lake looked like it was getting hammered, like pretty much.
Well, yeah.
And that Lake Hamilton, it's a really small lake. It's
How small is it?
It's kind of like Mark Twain Lake. I mean, about that size.
Mark Twain is really big.
Well, for you, but...
Mark Twain is huge.
That's not that big of a lake.
Yes, it is.
Not really.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you could fish half of Mark Twain in a day and a half.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, you can.
No.
Anyways, so Lake Hamilton, not a very big lake, and, there's a ton of boats out there. And so, talking to my buddy John, he'd been out fishing a couple times, like the weekends before, and, just... The bite was like really tough down there. Like he's been struggling, he was struggling to get bit. And, down there a lot of guys throw Alabama rigs, and throw jerk baits and jigs and stuff down by the dam in that clear water. And so that's what we did, for the first couple hours on Saturday. And I know it just wasn't working out. Just really wasn't catching anything, getting any bites. And so, I knew we had to do something. I knew we had to change something up. So, I asked John, I said, hey, do you know where, we can find some dirty water around here?
Did you use that burrito you had for breakfast?
What do you mean? No, I said, but I just asked him, I said, hey, everybody's fishing down here. They've been beating the hell out of this lake. We got to get away from people, and we got to find something different because everybody's, fishing the same stuff down here. And, these fish that, either they're not there or we're just not getting bit.
So did you go and use a white jig in the muddy water?
Nope, didn't do that this time. But we went up and we found some different places to fish, I'll tell you that. And it didn't take long.
Why don't you tell me where?
Well, John's going to be fishing tournament down there in, I think, a week or something. So I don't know if I want to talk about everything we did. But let's just say when we found
a magical spot.
Yeah, when we found we were looking for, full of
unicorns
and rainbows.
There was gold on the other side.
Anything was a rainbow compared to what we figured out, on the main lake there. So we found an area.
An oasis.
An oasis for bass. And
an oasis for
it didn't
bass.
take long before we had, about 3 or 4 keepers in there and probably shook off.
How big were they?
Well, he caught one that was probably about, 3 pounds, and I had a couple other 2-pounders in there, which, Hamilton, that's not bad because, sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot to do good there. Mm-hmm. I mean, like a team tournament, I think on Saturday, took 19 pounds to win that they had down there, but we'll talk about that. And then, so we find this area, and, we catch a couple fish right away, and we haven't even had a bite for 3 or 4 hours, but we pulled in there and we had, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 bites and caught a couple fish, and, it looked pretty promising. So, we tried, and then we left there because we don't want to beat it up too much because, that's a big mistake that a lot of people do is, they're practicing and they go out and they catch all their fish the day before the tournament, which doesn't help you, when you're trying to win a tournament the next day. So
that never happens.
Huh?
So that never happens.
Oh yeah, it never happens. I mean, I've had people do that to me where they go out and catch all their fish the day before a tournament. But anyways, so
I'm being sarcastic, babe.
Huh?
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, I know. I'm not, but so knowing what to look for, we went around and found some other areas that were just like it in different part of the lake, and we ended up catching fish there too. It was like we'd found this pattern that the fish were wanting, and
so there's multiple oases.
There is. It's just you had to look for some a couple different things, which I'm not going to talk so much.
Did you do a fish dance too?
No, I didn't do a fish dance, but I think John was doing a fish dance because he was going to get to go to those areas the next day. And, since I'm fishing as a non-boater, I just kind of had to do whatever. But, so we found some areas, showed him a couple things that you could do differently to catch fish down there. Some things that, he hadn't really done before. And, We tried doing some other stuff too, and that didn't work. We kind of went back to doing what we were doing in the morning. Didn't really do any good on that. And then, it was pretty much time, to go to the meeting. So I went to the Mr. Bass Arkansas meeting, and
how was that?
It's very different. So
informative?
Very informative. So they have a meeting that is kind of old school in a way. So what they do is they go through each boat draw one by one. So what they do is for each boat they read out who partners are, and everybody's got to be at the meeting, but they go over all the rules. So I think they do a really good job of making sure everybody knows the rules. One of the nice things they did was they had a Mexican buffet. So they had a Mexican restaurant down there cater it, and so that was kind of a nice touch.
Did you have to pay for the?
No.
What?
So they gave you dinner and dinner and drinks. So that was kind of nice.
Like alcohol?
No alcohol.
Like iced tea?
Iced tea and soda, stuff like that.
I love Mexican food.
So, and they had fajitas, they had steak, chicken, and some other stuff. So
Oh, I bet you were so happy.
yeah, it wasn't too bad. And so we got out of that meeting probably about 8:30 at night after, we got our partners and stuff for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And so later that night, didn't get a whole lot of sleep. Ended up rigging up all my rods, because
that's what you do every single tournament.
Right.
Because you can't sleep the night before because you're so excited.
Right. And so I wanted to make sure that all my gear was ready to go. The guy that I fished with, that I drew for the tournament, he was a local guy who ended up he got like 8th place the day before in a 100-boat tournament down there, and they had about 15-something pounds. So I figured, hey, I better get all my gear ready to go because I might be on the fish actually tomorrow.
And you weren't.
And we weren't. So
sucks.
So
The way
Sunday,
the cookie crumbles, my dear.
Right. So Sunday, we knew we were gonna get some really bad weather for fishing because it was gonna rain all day and it was gonna be really cold. So we started off in the morning, went to a couple spots, pretty close to the ramp, and they just weren't biting. Like, we didn't get a bite for like the first 2 hours, and actually seen the guy who won the tournament on Saturday also fishing, like right by us, and he didn't have a fish, and he had like 19 pounds the day before. And the guy I fished with, he said that, they were culling probably like the first like 30 minutes on the first day. They probably caught like 25 or 30 keepers.
What is culling?
Culling is when you've got 5 fish, if you have a 5-fish limit, and you catch a bigger fish than what you already have, and you replace the smallest fish in your live well with the bigger one. That's what culling is.
Okay.
So they were culling out, culling up fish, upgrading, right off the bat on Saturday, but there was wind and there was a couple other things going on. And Sunday, went to those same spots, we didn't get a bite. And we fished there, for a couple hours, didn't do any good.
And how did this make you feel, Spencer?
Well, I knew that, Saturday, like, we had a really tough time getting bit, anywhere, on the main lake like that. So, the wheels were turning in the back of my mind saying, we fished, these spots that were supposed to be pretty good. We haven't even had a bite. Right now it's pretty early in the day. It's like 10 o'clock. We can make a move, go do something, totally different, and probably catch a bunch of fish.
And let me guess, that did not happen.
Right. So we didn't end up doing that.
Why?
Well, I kind of mentioned it to the guy, but, he lives pretty close to that lake and fishes it all the time. So I kind of figured, he'd figure something out for us. Mm-hmm. And, out of respect.
Yeah, you don't want to be too assertive.
Well, yeah, and, that's the thing, too, fishing out of his boat. Out of respect, try to be, kind of mentioned it, but didn't really, push it too much. But we stayed around, fished a lot. Didn't really get anything. We ended up going to this one spot, a little bit steeper bank on a point, and I ended up getting the first keeper of the day on an Alabama rig.
How big was it? Like 2 pounds?
It was like 13 inches long. Because down there on Lake Hamilton, they have a 12-inch limit. And I've never had a day where I've tried to fish so hard to catch 12-inch fish either. I mean, it's crazy.
God, he's pulling out the rod.
So this was what I got my first keeper on. It's just a Razr Baits Alabama rig, and I had some little 2.8 Kitech swim baits on there. So I was throwing this.
Looks like a little chandelier.
Yep. And so I was just slow rolling this kind of off a deep point. That's what we fished a lot. And caught one keeper. And even that fish wasn't really hooked that great. It was hooked like on the outside of the mouth. So they weren't really biting really good. And so that was like the first fish of the day. And we ran, I don't know, like 20 different spots, like in the rain. It was pouring down rain all day and never got a bite. And then we finally pulled in on this one little like cove that had some brush piles in it, and actually caught the second fish of the day. It was another keeper, and I got him on a crankbait, and he was just a little 13-inch spotted bass, and I got him on one of these little rock crawlers here.
Oh, I love those. Those you love.
Yeah, and so I threw that out there, and
Did you just hit our TV?
probably caught a keeper doing that, and it was really weird too because after I caught that fish, I caught like 4 white bass that were like this big.
Ooh.
And so like
Did you keep them?
no, you couldn't keep them because we're in a tournament, but. I mean, these were like 3.5-pound white bass. I mean, they're just like the fattest little white bass I've ever seen. And so after catching that,
Did
keeper
you take
spot,
a picture?
no, I threw these fish like back, but it was nuts because we got into a school of them, and they were probably in about like 3 foot of water. And when I hooked up with the first one, I thought I had like a really good largemouth or something on, but then I got him up to the boat and it was white bass. So that was pretty sad. And then he threw out there a couple times, caught a few, and I caught a couple more, and yeah, it just really sucked. So he ended up catching one keeper in front of me on the day, throwing a crankbait off the side of a dock.
How big was it?
About 13 inches.
Okay. So you caught 2, he caught 1 the whole day.
Yep.
Okay.
And so
wasn't the best tournament.
wasn't the best tournament. Now,
What did you learn from this, Spencer Clark?
well, and I think, one of the biggest things, you can take away from that tournament, is the fact that, you can be on these fish, one day, catching them, and, catch all these fish, but, as conditions change and, if stuff's not working for you, if you're not in an area where you're catching fish, like, you got to make it happen. Like, you got to make a move, but you also got to know, like, where to go and, like, what to do, too.
Uh-huh.
And, he probably had a really good day on Saturday. Caught all those fish, did really well, and mentally it was just like hard to adjust and go do something totally different that he hadn't been doing probably on the lake.
What was your favorite part about the whole weekend? Coming home to see me, I know.
Yeah, actually, I mean it was getting out. I think Saturday was a pretty good, enjoyable day of fishing out there. It was really cold, but it was good, get to see my friend and do some fishing. I think I learned a lot more about, the way Hamilton fishes because I did draw a guy that does really good down there most of the time. So I got to see, a lot of the stuff that he fishes, which, a lot of people aren't going to have that opportunity to see that. So, I learned a lot. Even though we didn't catch fish, I kind of know what he looks for usually when he's, out there fishing, which is a big deal. But I also, got to see that there's other patterns that you can fish on that lake that, maybe not everybody else is fishing. You can catch some fish. So my buddy John, he ended up taking 8th on the boater side and got a really nice check.
How much?
I think it was like $500.
Okay. How much was the entry?
Like $150.
How much was it for him to get down there?
We lived right there.
How much was his gas?
I don't know. Probably not that much. He lived right there.
Yeah, so he made a little bit. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I'm saying, he's ranked, I think, 3rd or 4th now overall in their points, though, because he had a really good tournament. He had a 5-fish limit for almost 12 pounds up there doing what we were doing. Caught a couple extra fish, throughout the day. So he had a really good tournament. They're doing something, I think, with Mr. Bass in a week or so where they're going to be doing like a major league fishing style event to where they're going to take the top 8 on the boaters and they're going to have them, or actually it's the top 7, but I think he's invited to fish because one of the guys opted out, but I think it's the top 7 and they fish for another $1,000 coming up here in a week. And so they're going to have that. If you check out Mr. Bass, you can see that action. So yeah, it was a really rough tournament. Took a really long time to get home. I was on the road for like 7 hours. Didn't get home till like 2 in the morning Monday.
No, it was 1. Okay, fine. It was maybe 1:50.
Yeah, and so I had to pull over, get a bunch of coffee. But I'll tell you what was really interesting was, so it'd been raining all day, and I go to get this guy's truck and trailer to pull him out, and his truck gets stuck in the mud.
What?
So we were like
is
one
this
of the
why you left so late?
Right. So we were on the last, boats to get out in the tournament. We had like one of the latest draw, the numbers. So we left, so he got there like pretty late and ended up having to park his boat and trailer in the grass. And he had 2-wheel drive, so ended up getting stuck. So luckily, I was able to find a strap from somebody and get him towed out. But
Who
that was a
towed
big
him
deal.
out?
One of the guys was in the tournament.
Oh, he had like a bigger truck or something?
Yeah. So we got him pulled out.
It's good to have buddies with trucks.
But, so we got him pulled out of there. And so I drove about 7 hours in the rain Sunday night.
Oh, I know. I got your phone calls.
And I was so tired because literally we were fishing in the rain all day. And it was like 40 degrees out. And we were just like soaked. Because I don't care what kind of rain gear you got. If you're fishing in the rain, running through the rain, a boat, like you're going to get wet. So after about 2 o'clock, we were just completely soaked. And I was so worn out that it took me forever to get back up here.
And you had no heat in your truck.
Yeah, and my heater went out on my truck, so I had no heat. And so it was a pretty cold experience coming back. But,
Spencer, I bet you know someone that could fix your heat.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's how Lake Hamilton went.
When's your next tournament?
So the next tournament, I was going to fish the Joe Bass tournament this weekend on Lake of the Ozarks.
But canceled.
It's canceled
Woo-hoo!
Because they have some weather coming in this weekend.
And now I get to spend a wonderful Valentine's weekend with my dear sweet hubby.
There you
and
go.
I'm so excited. So excited. So if anyone has like any places that we can go, please let us know. Or like any fun things to do. I want to know.
There you go. Yeah, drop those comments below if you guys have any suggestions.
Please make it appropriate.
Okay, so
Keep it at PG.
So the next tournament I got will be in 2 weeks. I'll be going back down to Arkansas. I'm fishing the Arca Division BFL on Lake Washita, which I've had some really good luck there in the past. And from what I've heard from John, he's been out fishing. That fishing is going to be really good probably. So I don't know. We're gonna keep our spirits high for that tournament and hope to have a good tournament down there. That lake, you can do a lot of different things on that lake. Throwing a red rattle trap, that's a very popular way to fish that lake. I've caught them really good on jerk baits, Alabama rigs, pretty much everything I've caught fish on that lake. So it could be a pretty good tournament coming up down there. Just kind of depends on, how this weather shakes up in the next couple of weeks. So one of the guys wrote me, and he asked me to kind of go through, all the different types of crankbaits that I throw over the course of the year.
Oh, God. We're going to be here forever.
And so I'm going to try to walk through the different types of crankbaits that I throw throughout the year here.
How about you choose your top 5?
Well, I don't know if the top 5 is what he's looking for. I think he was wanting to see like what I do throughout the year.
Babe, it's
So
gonna
we're
be
gonna-
so many.
I know, but we're gonna go through these pretty quick.
You guys can't see this, but Nellie is staring at her dad right now. Her dog.
So
Here, I'm gonna show you. Look at her. She's watching her daddy perform. So cute.
So this time of the year, early in the spring, early winter like this,
Nellie, that's your
there's a
dad.
couple baits that you really want to have on hand for most of your fishing. The stuff I like to throw, number 1, don't leave home without a wiggle wart. These work really good this time of the year. A lot of times you fish, they're at 6 to 8 foot range around those rocky banks, so this works really good. If you're going to be fishing a really dirty lake this time of the year, a square bill can be really good. Sometimes you're fishing these lakes where the water is muddy enough that the fish are going to be real tight to the bank, and you want something that's not going to go very deep. So a square bill like this works. Another good option is a DT6, a little Rapala DT6. This works really good this time of the year. And then some of the workhorses for me are these rock crawlers. I really like to throw a rock crawler because they go a little deeper. These work really good if you're, fishing lakes that have a little bit clearer water to them. And then a shad rap's always another good option this time of the year. So,
what is a shad rap?
Shad rap's just a crankbait.
Wait, let me see it.
Looks like a shad.
I want to see
Now
it.
I hooked
Ooh,
myself.
hey. Oh, you did. Hey, where's that one with the red eyes? That looks kind of scary.
So.
Wait.
So yeah, so those are the crankbaits that I'm gonna throw.
Are you still watching?
Early in the year, and as we start going through the year, you can catch fish during the spawn on those baits as well. But when the fish start moving out, when they first get done spawning and they start moving out to the points and main lake ledges, there's a couple of different crankbaits too that I really like. So your Strike King 5XDs, your 6XDs, your DD22s. Some of these baits work really good when those fish are just moving out and they're getting to where they're relating to the main lake and they're starting to move out into that main lake and get into that current, but they're not really deep just yet because they just got done spawning. They're just kind of moving out. These work really good. And then sometimes though, you'll find some schools of fish that are really deep out there, and so we'll get into throwing these monster crankbaits. This here is an Academy bait. This works really good.
That's huge.
And then some of the other ones I like to throw are a Strike King 10XD. I throw this one a lot. I throw a 6th Sense Cloud 9. This does really well for me when the fish start moving out. And I'll pretty much stick with these baits here all the way from the summer all the way into early fall is when I'll throw these things. So, and then once that water starts getting down below 60 degrees, I'll start going back to the baits that I started fishing in the springtime. So I'll go back to these crankbaits that I showed you earlier that I use in the springtime. And so that's kind of like the cyclical nature of crankbait fishing for me. Your typical colors that you're going to want to have. You want to have some crawdad patterns for the spring. You're also going to want to have, your shads and your chartreuse patterns for the summertime on into the fall. And then as the water starts getting colder and those crawdads start moving, you're going to want to go back to your crawdad patterns. And that's pretty much what, what I do. And, basically I throw my crankbaits on a couple different rods. So one of the rods that I use is a 7-foot medium bait casting rod, and this is a Razr Rod, 7-foot medium, and I'm gonna throw all my baits like my rock crawlers, my wiggle warts on this setup.
That one's pretty. I like that.
Yeah, this is actually the one I caught the fish on down at
Is
Hamilton.
it really?
Yep.
I like that. That's like a really pretty color.
Yeah, I think I don't know. The fish didn't seem like they liked it too much.
But you caught the fish on it.
Caught one on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so that's the rod there that I'm gonna throw all those types of crankbaits on.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna be fishing those deep diving crankbaits like a 10XD, I'm gonna throw those on a 7 to 7.5 foot heavy action rod, because that's a big bait and I want to be able to throw it way out there, and I want to be able to feel that bait. So if you get into like some of these like real wimpy rods that a lot of people think you're gonna throw a big crankbait on, you're not gonna feel those fish when they bite. You want something that is a really stiff, long rod that you're gonna be able to throw it out there, and you're gonna feel that bait when it's coming through those brush piles, because that's what I'm doing with that bait most of the time. And that way you're gonna get hung up a lot less, because you're gonna be able to tell the difference between when a fish hits it and when you're coming through the brush. So I'm gonna throw a 7.5 foot to 7 foot heavy action rod to medium heavy action, and for those baits I like to throw 14-pound tests. So that's what I throw on those baits all the time. I use heavier line, whereas most of the smaller crankbaits, I use anything from 10 to 8-pound tests, depending on how deep I want to fish them. But for the bigger baits, I'll throw a 14-pound line, and even sometimes if I'm trying to keep those big baits shot, I'll throw a 20-pound line. And so I think a lot of people have the misconception you got to use real light line on crankbaits because they're trying to get that maximum depth, but some of these big crankbaits work really good too if you're throwing them really shallow. So
speaking of baits, if there's actually any girls that are watching this and want to do something for their hubbies or boyfriends or significant others that are fishermen. The first year that Spencer and I were together, I made him a little, what was it?
It was a gummy bear. It was a gummy worm tackle box.
Yeah, I made him a tackle box, and instead of bait, I filled it with candy. So, like, you know, they were like bobbers, which were like gumballs, Swedish fish, which were like, you know, his little lure things.
Yeah, you had like some Sour Patch worms or something in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
And then I like had rope. There was some type of rope for.
I think you had like some Twizzlers or something. For
yeah,
line
for your
or
line.
like that.
So.
I don't know. That was kind of.
Anyways, you can do cute things for fishermen, hubbies,
What, for
or
Valentine's
boyfriends,
Day?
or whatever. Yeah, Spencer got me a plant. It died.
Yeah. But I also got you. I also took you out for a steak dinner. So, you know.
You did?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember
I
our
thought
first
you made me steak.
Yeah.
We're not going to share the first Valentine's, Spencer. You don't need to share that part of it.
Yeah, that was one of your finer moments.
Stop.
Yeah, so anyways, guys, another thing too I want to tell you guys about is I got a new sponsor called Real Time Pain Relief. And so, you know, some of you guys know, some of you guys don't know. You know, if you've been in touch with me in the last year or so,
Can you like move it a little bit so I can see it better?
Last spring in the Big Bass Bash, I was fishing and ended up slipping on my trolling motor and tearing a ligament in my foot.
And then he would limp around, and then, like, sometimes he would even crawl on the floor because he couldn't walk.
Well, I had a torn ligament in my foot, in my ankle. So I put it off for a little bit, and I ended up going, you know, to the urgent care, getting looked at, and yeah, they told me, you know, I tore a ligament in my leg. So all last season, ended up fishing with a torn ligament in my ankle.
And it would get bad every single time he fished.
And every single tournament, I had a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And it was a really bad deal. So, and actually last year at the end of the season, I was kind of ready to be done with the tournaments just because I was in so much pain. So over the holidays here, I got my hands on some of this real-time pain relief, some of these creams for your feet. And I've been using these, and my ankle's healed up now to the point where I haven't had any problems for, you know, the past 2 months. But this stuff, you know, has really helped me get through that. Along with, you know, using this when I'm in the gym because I like to go to the gym and I like to weight lift. And so, you know, this stuff works really good when you're trying to relieve some pain after you do those crazy leg days at the gym.
Well, and you let me try it too.
Yeah, so what did you think about it?
Well, tell the reason why I had to use it.
I can't remember.
I hurt my foot.
Yeah, because you did something, I remember that. You did something sort of similar.
Yeah, I was limping for like a whole week. And I have a standing desk at work, and I couldn't even stand because I mean, I could, but I had to like balance on one foot because my leg hurt so much. So then I tried that, and I put it on, and I mean, like it definitely helped make it feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and so, guys, I'll give you guys some information, you know, upcoming here about real time. But yeah, if you guys are looking for you know, some home remedies for you know, for pain related to fishing, because you know, a lot of us guys, we go fishing for a couple days in a row. You know, you're gonna start to feel that on your joints. So this stuff works really good.
Yeah, you guys are probably like super still.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it would be good if you're a hunter too. Like if you hunt, you know, because you gotta stay still. I don't hunt, but I imagine.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know, but you know, and then something else too. You know, I think like, I don't know if I really talked about it, but you know, going back to, you know, Hamilton, you know, last weekend, I think one of the biggest lessons, you know, be learned from that is, you know, you got to be willing to adapt. You got to be willing to change it up when you're not catching fish. And that's the hardest thing to do when you got so much confidence in what you're doing. I saw it last year in a couple tournaments where, fished with a couple different guys. Like, I think one of the tournaments, well, actually a couple of the tournaments where, we made some changes and it worked out really good. I was up at La Crosse, and we were fishing up there, and the guy that I was fishing with, Gary, he went to his first couple spots. We didn't get a bite. And so he was like, you know what? He's like, screw it. We're not going to fish for these largemouth anymore. He says, we're going to go to the rocks for some smallmouth. So as soon as we left, trying to catch, these largemouth and these grass beds, we went to the rocks, and we had a limit of smallmouth. We each had a limit of smallmouth in, I don't know, probably like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But he had enough confidence and enough, whereabouts to go ahead and do that, and, ended up catching a limit of smallmouth. So that got us to slow down and fish a lot slower. And then what we did is we made another move about 10 miles down the river, and we started targeting, these spots where they had the bigger largemouth, and we actually were to make a couple calls, and ended up getting a check down there. So another time too where, I saw somebody last year make a big move, in the middle of the tournament. I was down at Truman Lake fishing with Dave McCormick, and we ended up hitting a lot of different brush piles and stuff like that down on the main lake, and literally didn't have anything. I think he had like one keeper or something like that. It was like 10:30, and he was like, you know what? He's like, this doesn't seem to be working. He's like, what are you thinking? I'm like, yeah. I said, this sucks, man. Like, we need to do something different. I was like, you wanna make a run up a river or something? He's like, yeah. He said, I know how to get up there. He's like, let's go do it. So then we ran, 40 minutes to get up this river, and then we each had a couple keepers, right away. So, I mean, you got to be willing
Perseverance.
you got to be willing to make those decisions
babe.
while on the water.
I'm sure everybody has had enough time watching us tonight. So, tune in next Wednesday for some more convos and some more persevering stories from Spencer Clark.
All right, guys. Until next time, take it easy.
All right, bye. Happy Valentine's Day. Have fun. Enjoy. Be safe.